The world couldn't get enough of them. The Life and Times of Dallas, next on TNN. On April 2nd, 1978, a red convertible drove through the gates of a magnificent ranch house in Texas. A young man and woman had just gotten married despite the feud between their families.
I'm sorry. I don't know what to say.
You could start by saying good luck.
Those were some of the first few moments of a new show that appeared without much warning. It caught on like a Texas wildfire, and TV audiences suddenly found themselves caught up in the saga of the Ewing family on a series called Dallas. From 1978 until 1991, family values took a weekly beating in the Ewing household. Over the years, none of the 7 deadly sins were left uncommitted or commandments unbroken, and millions of Americans tuned in and turned the series into a television phenomenon.
We were the first show of that time period to be so opulent and so denigrated at the same time in terms of our moral structure. It was like some of the great Greek tragedies. We were the classic dysfunctional family, but it's one thing to be a dysfunctional family in a housing development. It's another thing to be the royal dysfunctional family, and we were America's royal dysfunctioning family. And everybody could pick a part that they liked and disliked, identify with it, and then ride this great ride for 13 years.
It was a show that was made to entertain, and it came along at a time when America needed a little escapism.
I remember the world being something of a different place in 1978 when we started the series. There was double-digit inflation running rampant throughout America and the world. And there was a situation of hostages in Iran. People were unhappy, I think, and nervous and scared. And suddenly we came up with a show that was sort of lighthearted and made fun of the wealthy and looked at this class of people that we hadn't seen on television before, that were oil people and cattlemen and drove Mercedes, and the women wore furs and lots of jewels, and there was something of a fantasy that was a relief for people to identify with. That's what I always felt was the main reason that it caught on.
People are always interested to see people who are luckier than they are, whose lives are a mess. So it makes us feel superior. And that's what the Ewings did. You know, they made us feel superior because they were cutting each other's throats, stabbing each other behind their backs. They had all the material stuff they needed, but they didn't have the moral wherewithal that all of us see that we have, we imagine, we fancy we have. Of course, if we had that dough, we might be that way too.
Dallas continued to build popularity into the 80s, and the show seemed to be more of a reflection of America during that time. We had a president who had played a cowboy, and greed had become fashionable.
I met a guy on the airplane the other day who really admired J.R., really thought that he was J.R. He was into aggressive takeovers of companies. And he just thought I was the role model. And he was really a despicable kind of person.
Dallas was an international hit as well. For better or for worse, it helped shape how audiences in other countries viewed Americans.
There were a lot of fans in Texas. A lot of people liked it. My mother didn't like it, but my mother didn't like Giant either, so there you go. She wanted people to portray Texans as serious-minded, hard-working people. Of course, nobody will tune in the television or buy tickets to see serious-minded, hard-working people.
There's not a chance in a million I'd choose you or any family above my wife.
The reason people both here and abroad could relate to Dallas was that it was basically about a family. The main story of a rivalry between brothers has a universal and timeless appeal.
It was a dumb, stupid trick they had. If you ever do it again,
Bobby Ewing was whatever JR wasn't, except the common thing that they both believed about themselves is that they were doing the best thing for their family. That was they just took absolutely polar opposite approaches to it. And therein lies the great Greek tragedy that we were. I had a moral compass that I would not deviate from, and JR broke his compass, I think, at birth. And Bobby was whatever was necessary to counterbalance the character of JR in the family. And everything else fell like Christmas tree ornaments from that particular relationship.
Bobby Ewing, the character Patrick Duffy played, was such an integral part of the series for many years, it surprises loyal viewers that originally it was planned that Bobby wasn't going to survive beyond the 5-episode miniseries that ran in the spring of 1978. He was going to be just the playboy brother who brings his new bride home, then suddenly dies. The main conflict was then going to be between JR and Bobby's widow, Pam. Luckily for Patrick Duffy, producer Leonard Katzman wasn't sure this was the best way to go.
And Leonard, in one of the story meetings with the network, asked a very obvious question. He said, "Why does Pam stay in the Ewing house?" And they said, "Well, because she was married to Bobby and now she's in." And he said, "No, she just got like $200 million and she would leave." And whoever the brain trust was at the network said, "Perhaps Bobby doesn't die." And therein lies my career.
Patrick Duffy was born and raised in Montana. In the 60s, he moved to Seattle and was encouraged to pursue an acting career by a teacher. Then, in 1976, he began his enviable career in television.
Well, I've only had 3 jobs. I had a Man from Atlantis that ran from 76 to 78, Dallas from 78 to 91, and Step by Step from 91 to 98. So I was out of work for 3 weeks in those 22 years. And that's my biography. It's short, but it's fat.
Every great drama needs a great villain, and Dallas had one of the best. Even though Larry Hagman was raised in Texas, it's a tribute to the producers of the series that they could see beyond the fact that Larry's mother was Mary Martin, the musical comedy legend famous for playing Peter Pan and in South Pacific. Or that his best-known earlier television credit was playing the lovably frazzled astronaut in the 1960s sitcom I Dream of Jeannie. Now, it's hard to believe that any other actor could have played JR, but several other actors, including Robert Foxworth, who later starred on Falcon Crest, had actually been considered.
I think Larry Hagman saw the role of JR as a great opportunity. He said when others were afraid if JR was going to be the bad guy, Larry would say, "Well, how bad can I make this old boy?" And so he had an insight initially as to this was really a great character to go for.
You got something to tell me?
And he was very, very smart in making JR one of these people that you love to hate.
You can't scare me.
It takes brains to know when to be scared, honey. And since that's something in short supply around here, I'm going to help you.
He wasn't really like my character. People didn't love to hate me. They just outright hated me. You kind of wanted to see JR get away with it because he was this tongue-in-cheek villain that you almost thought, oh, he's doing it as sport.
Or did you try a few Frenchmen just because you were there?
He's doing all these evil, nasty things as a game. And he was very, very smart in playing it that way.
Damn, I hate that woman.
As ruthless as JR was, he was still vulnerable, sexy, needed approval from his father, loved his son. I think that Larry Hagman really kept JR the most intriguing character on television for 14 years. And he was never nominated for an Emmy Award. Isn't that amazing?
Well, I think the thing that we all know about Larry now, he's been exposed. He's not really JR. He's probably one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet, and he's a very loving, giving man that's creative and eccentric, and that's why we love him.
Off camera, Larry Hagman kept things fun and friendly on the set.
J.R. Ewing here.
But on camera as JR, he was riding for a fall.
Hello?
The Life and Times of Dallas returns in a moment on TNN. The Life and Times of Dallas continues on TNN. The producers of Dallas thought the modern Southwest would provide a fresh